For the last 40 years, as chairman of CVMR, I've been traveling back and forth to Africa, negotiating with about 19 different countries in that continent about rare earth, cobalt, nickel, and 36 different metals altogether. We have contracts with a number of governments and a number of major corporations in that continent. The diverse cultures of Africa are such old and much older than Europe and North America that we can trace the origin of humanity to Lake Tanganyika, somewhere between Burundi, DRC, and Tanzania. That's how old that place is. If you draw a line across Africa, just above Ethiopia, South Sudan, and the Central African Republic, you divide roughly, in general, Africa in two segments. The north part, most countries are Muslim. The southern part, most countries are Christian. So that there is a huge divide in that continent, religiously, culturally, and otherwise. They have a lot of natural and important minerals, some of which we like, some of which are useless to us. But this is not only about critical minerals. They have diamond, they have oil, they have many other resources that we forget and we are not mostly interested in unless you're in the diamond business or gold business. For centuries, we've been raping that continent, its resources, without paying for it. And we're used to that. So when the prices go up a little bit, we become worried. And our calculations in our books start worrying us even more. For centuries, we used the labor for free, forced labor. Today, we are facing a completely different scenario altogether. I recently attended the 36 African Union's summit in Addis Ababa. The theme of the summit was reparatory justice. But because of the elections in the United States, the entire conversation among the delegates switched to what to do with the United States, what to do with the tariffs, and how should African nations react to it. African Union plays a very vital, important role in shaping the mineral sector in Africa. There is an acronym that they use, MAV. It stands for African Mining Vision. They used to promote local beneficiation. That has changed, and those of you who work in Africa, you know that and you see the trend coming through. Beneficiation in our word basically means concentrating the minerals, leaving the residue with all the acids and pollution behind, taking those things back to our country for refining. That is not going to happen very long. These countries have woken up to the reality. Beneficiation is necessary, but refining is what they want. And you will feel this coming along much sooner than you expected, that unless you build refineries in those countries where you are looking for minerals, bringing those minerals to North America or Europe for refining becomes a passé. The difficulty is in dealing with different countries and dealing with the legacy of bribery, corruption, and all the good things that go with it. Let me read you one paragraph from the African Union's Mineral Resources Strategy. This was published in 2024, December. As the world accelerates toward net zero carbon emission, demand for Africa's green minerals is set to soar. The AGMS recognizes that Africa must move beyond raw mineral exports and build a strong integrated value chain that fosters local beneficiation, job creations, and economic diversification. The strategy aligns with the African mining vision by advocating for equitable and sustainable mineral resource management, and so on and so forth. It goes on. The basic tenets of this are strengthening the geological knowledge of those countries, exploration and investment in the minerals in the countries, developing people's skills and technological know-how, building key value chains, and promoting responsible mining. In not so distant past, Europe, North America, Australia, China, Chinese mining companies that concentrated on the minerals they were after left the contaminated tailings to be taken care of by the local governments. That cost was huge to African nations. The local governments did not mind because the officials were easy to bribe. They just ignored it. They could not afford to clean it. Therefore, what you see is the remnants of that negligence overall. The objection to this seldom came from any officials. Mostly it came from NGOs and people who were concerned living around those pollutions. To deal with these kind of difficulties, you usually faced with demands for insurrection. Most of them were financed by major corporations or outside countries, outside of Africa. And these took the shape of financing neighboring countries to invade various parts of the countries that were becoming problematic. Prime example of that is today what's happening in Eastern Congo. You can review that on your own. This has been going on for centuries and continues to go on, but not much longer, I hope. Chinese strategy, and I'm not bashing China, you all know that about me. I think we should emulate these guys. The Chinese strategy regarding these kinds of issues has been quite different. They either buy some of those minerals that have been mined by the artisanal workers, such as coltan or gold, so their hands stay clean. Whatever mess is going on is arranged by the locals. Those minerals that require much more skilled labor, they bring a cadre of their own people from China. They wear different clothes, they eat different food, they stay in their own compound, they do not mix with the locals. And that way they're isolated and not much is known about what's going on. This is not Africa, but Afghanistan. They did this in the center of Afghanistan for 20 years while the US was bombing the place. These guys were reaping off all the copper they could find out of Afghanistan and shipped it all to China. This is a wise way of looking at what you need to do. We are bereft of these strategies. We don't know where to start doing something like that. And since we don't know, we bash it. We say they're nasty people. The tactical maneuvers of China is not necessarily confined to Africa. It's all-encompassing. They look at the source of the minerals that they need, but they also look at the end-user market. Just because a broker is sitting in New York, Toronto, or London, England, it doesn't mean that they are not incentivized by the Chinese or other corporations or countries. Look at that. And if you don't believe me, try to build a refinery in the United States for magnesium or lithium today, and see what happens. You will need probably about a couple of $1 billion. The market, while you are investing, looks very strong. You're very happy. Lines of credit are open to you. And when you reach the maximum world-class level of the corporation, of the refinery that you're trying to build, suddenly the market crashes. This has happened in the United States to magnesium, has happened to rare earth elements. You know this very well. This crash suddenly comes because the prices have dropped and the Chinese reap the benefits as a result. Sometimes, even today, if you look at BYD, the battery manufacturer in China, recently they announced that salt is going to replace lithium. So if you're building a lithium refinery somewhere in North America or Europe, forget it. The lines of credit start shrinking, investment in your company shrinks as well, and you might give up this whole notion. Meanwhile, for the next 15 to 20 years, lithium has to stay on for the batteries and for manufacturing. And the major producer of this is China. And they keep reaping the benefits. The Chinese engagement in this kind of a strategy started in 1979 by a guy called Deng Xiaoping. His policy was called open door policy. And then he started some special economic zones in China and other places that they were engaged in. This led to the President Xi Jinping that announced in 2013, I think it was in Indonesia, what today we know as Belt and Road. And I don't have to elaborate on how effective Belt and Road has been. China today moves into a country in Africa. They dominate the resources that they want. They also build infrastructures. Mike and I recently were in a country where the entire parliament, residence for the president, roads leading to it, and everything else was built in an image of a magnificent palace as a gift to that country. So if you're the president sitting in that palace, you have to be partial to the people who built this for you. I asked the ambassador from the United States to accompany me to the meeting with the president, and the response was, State Department does not pinpoint a single company to help. The nature of the politics of the United States is such that they have to be even-handed, so they cannot help one company. On the other hand, Israelis and many other countries, especially Chinese, not only help their businesses, they tell you what to say and how not to say it, and who the president is sleeping with and what he likes to eat tomorrow. So when you go to those meetings, you're at an advantage, whereas Canada didn't even have an embassy in that country where I'm talking about. Companies like, organizations like LME, since King Henry VIII, it's been there. We look at it as a magnificent establishment. If you want to check the price of your favorite metal, that's where you go immediately. LME has been managed, owned by the Chinese since 2012. It's run out of Shanghai. I tried to get a similar organization in Texas, and also in Toronto, I didn't go very far with that. LME is still LME. And although Chicago Commodity Exchange deals more in metals, maybe 10 times more than LME, we don't check Chicago Commodity Exchange where we want to know the price of nickel. We go to our phones and check for LME. The new approach, resource-rich countries of Africa have a better grip on the valuable commodities they have. Corrupt officials can be helpful at times, but regulations and social media has curtailed that substantially. And they have learned from us. They don't ask for brown envelopes anymore. They ask you to contribute to their election. So you go and eat a dead chicken and you pay $10,000 for it. And that is quite formal and quite normal, and you can report it, and there is no hanky-panky associated with that. Military force has been an option, especially for the Americans and the French and the British, but it is not in the long run very effective, and you create a lot of enemies in those countries. Like taking by force their resources is not a long-term good policy. Financial resources through IMF and World Bank and central banks, you can put pressure on those countries as much as you want. And we have, and we continue to do so. The problem with that is financial pressures are not that effective anymore with cryptocurrencies and tokenization of assets. And these countries are very much into it. Even their central banks are moving in that direction. Economic aid, listen to President Trump, has been canceled. And many other European countries are on the same page. Let me give you one example as a new method of doing something. A JV partner of ours at CVMR in the Middle East recently traveled to Africa with us. And the government of that country signed an agreement to train 10,000 young people, 10,000 young people to go to the universities of that country and be trained as technicians and engineers over 5 years, and to be sent back to that country, not to be kept in the Middle East. That was selfish of us because those people were needed for one of the plants that we were building there, we are building there. But more importantly, it enhanced the negotiations with that country so much, made it so much easier. One of the major worries we had was how the hell do we man a refinery in a country that does not have enough educated people, enough skilled people? How do we train them? Here is a country that is providing aid, but not in cash. It's actually physically important to do things of this nature that overrides every other aspect of foreign aid. We are about, in fact, next week, to launch a unique process for refining of uranium, and that will start in July. We are traveling to Central African Republic, Chad, Niger, and Mali. We have a partner in the United States that will accompany us in this trip. It's a public company, so I cannot name them until they allow me to do so. The yellow cake will be made in these countries and brought back to US for further refinement. And if you ask me why do you do this in a war zone in Africa, the only answer I can give you, just to remember the SAS motto, who dares wins. And this is one place that these countries need someone to go there and purchase some of the resources from. So they let us in. Uh, very soon, and I'm unfortunately telling this to an audience that is thinking hopefully differently, very soon you will be forced to import refined products from Africa. You can no longer, in the long run, in the next 20 years, be able to treat elements, concentrate them in Africa and bring the refined products, the concentrated products to North America. The fact that you say concentrate is a tricky word. Concentrate means anywhere from 4% to 75%. And if you want to see how this thing shifts back and forth and how difficult these regulations are, look at Indonesia and the Philippines, how their governments came up with various legislations changing these percentages, and at the end, they just gave up. If you have to import directly refined products, that means you have to transfer technologies to these countries because they don't have it. Technologies and know-how. And that is another tricky scenario, and probably a lot of lawyers will make lots of money out of it. The method of financing these ventures has changed, and if you are not well versed in cryptocurrencies, in tokenization, and all the nice new things that are coming up these days, you will be at a hard place to invest in the countries that I'm mentioning. Thank you very much.